A quiet suburban street. The evening sun dips low as Marcus, a 17-year-old black teen in a school hoodie, walks home, basketball in one hand, phone in the other. Suddenly, two police cruisers screech to a stop beside him. Hands where I can see them. Marcus freezes, confused. One cop shoves him against the hood, another digs through his backpack. A small plastic bag accidentally falls to the ground. Marcus stammers, "That's not mine. I swear." The officer smirks, "Tell it to the judge, kid." Blue lights flash across his terrified face, the moment everything changes. Before we dive in, make sure you hit like and subscribe because stories like this deserve to be heard. The flashing lights painted the neighborhood in red and blue, washing over the neat lawns and trimmed hedges like a warning siren to everyone watching. Marcus Brooks, 17, stood pressed against the hood of a squad car, face down, hard hammering. His palms were slick with sweat, and his voice trembled. "I didn't do anything, sir. Please, I just got out of practice." Officer Daniels, a tall white cop with mirrored shades, cut him off sharply. "Quiet. You think we just pick random kids for fun?" His partner, Officer Reynolds, crouched near Marcus's backpack, pretending to search through it. His gloved hand moved quickly, too quickly, and when it came back up, a small Ziploc bag of white powder glinted under the flashing lights. The sound of gasps echoed from across the street. Curtains moved. Phones came out. Neighbors were filming. Marcus's chest tightened. "That's not mine. I don't even know what that is." Reynolds sneered, holding the bag up for everyone to see. "Looks like we've got ourselves a little dealer, huh?" Marcus's stomach dropped. His mind spun. He'd seen this scene before, online, in news clips, but never thought he'd be the one living it. He tried to speak again, but Daniels shoved him harder against the car. "Keep resisting, and we'll have to add another charge." The cuffs clicked around his wrists. Metal bit into his skin. His backpack fell to the pavement, spilling out a textbook, a half-empty water bottle, and a folded photo, Marcus with his mom in army uniform, both smiling proudly. Reynolds glanced down at the photo and chuckled. "What's this? Your mom works for the army. You trying to make us nervous or something?" Marcus's voice cracked. "She's a colonel." Daniels laughed, the kind of dry, mocking laugh that burns. "Oh yeah? Maybe she can come bail you out after we book you for possession." A few neighbors yelled from their porches. "He's a good kid. That's Mrs. Brooks' son. You're making a mistake." But the cops ignored them. They had their evidence, and the body cams were rolling, conveniently turned on only after the bag hit the ground. Marcus's throat felt tight. He whispered, almost to himself, "She's gonna be here soon." Daniels smirked. "Good. She can watch us take her criminal son downtown." Reynolds radioed in. "Suspect detained, narcotics recovered. Requesting transport." Marcus's eyes darted to the end of the street, a familiar black SUV turning the corner fast. His heart skipped. He knew that car. The SUV screeched to a stop behind the police cruisers. The engine cut. Silence hummed for a moment, then the sound of heels hitting pavement. Slow. Firm. Commanding. Daniels turned, annoyed. "Ma'am, please stand back. This is an active arrest." The woman didn't stop. She walked forward with the posture of someone used to being saluted. Her uniform was pristine, ribbons gleaming, cap shadowing her eyes. Colonel Angela Brooks stopped just a few feet from the officers. Her tone was calm, but her words sliced through the night. "Officer, why is my son in handcuffs?" Both men froze. Daniels swallowed hard, suddenly aware of who stood before him. "Colonel Brooks, we were just, searching him," she interrupted. "On what probable cause?" Reynolds, still holding the bag, stammered. "We received a call, description matched." Angela's eyes narrowed. "Description matched what? A black teenager walking home with a backpack?" Her voice didn't rise, but the authority in it was unmistakable. The neighbors watched in stunned silence. One even whispered, "That's his mom?" Angela stepped closer, her shadow falling across Marcus and the two officers. "Remove the cuffs. Now." Neither cop moved. Daniels tried to speak. "Ma'am, with all due respect." "That wasn't a request, officer." Her voice hit like thunder. Daniels flinched, fumbling for the key. The metallic click of the cuffs opening was the loudest sound on the street. Marcus rubbed his wrists, eyes wet but proud. Angela crouched slightly, inspecting the evidence bag. She picked it up by the corner, her expression unreadable. "Interesting," she said softly. "You found this before you even searched the bag, didn't you?" The officers exchanged looks. Panic flickered in their eyes. Angela straightened, holding the bag in one hand and pulling her phone from her pocket with the other. "You're both being recorded right now. And since you conveniently turned your body cams on halfway through, I'll make sure Internal Affairs sees the missing footage." Daniels took a step back. "Colonel, we didn't mean." "You meant to ruin a young man's life," she cut in sharply. "And you picked the wrong one." A few neighbors cheered quietly. Phones were still recording. Angela put her hand gently on Marcus's shoulder. "You okay, son?" He nodded, his voice shaking. "Yeah, Mom. I'm okay now." She looked back at the two officers, her voice low and controlled. "Don't move. I've already called your captain." The two men stood frozen, shame washing over them. The flashing lights faded as Angela guided Marcus to her SUV, holding her head high. The neighbors knew they'd just witnessed something powerful, justice standing tall in uniform. The street was still buzzing, murmurs, camera phones raised, the sound of crickets cutting through the tension. The flashing lights continued to swirl across Colonel Angela Brooks' face, but she didn't flinch. She'd faced enemy lines before, but this was personal. Officer Daniels shifted uncomfortably, his jaw tight. Officer Reynolds looked pale, trying to avoid eye contact. "Colonel Brooks," Daniels began, his voice trembling slightly, "we were just following protocol." Angela's eyes locked on him, sharp and unwavering. "Protocol," she repeated. "You handcuff an unarmed teenager without cause, plant evidence, and call that protocol?" Reynolds stepped in, desperate to defend himself. "We got a call about suspicious activity." Angela's tone turned icy. "Suspicious activity? What exactly was suspicious about a kid walking home in a basketball jersey? Or was it just the color of his skin that made him suspicious?" Reynolds' lips parted, but no words came. The crowd murmured louder now, phones capturing every second. Angela lifted the evidence bag, holding it under the flashing lights. "You found this on the ground. Conveniently, before you even searched the backpack. I've reviewed enough investigation reports to know when evidence is placed, not found." Daniels tried to regain control, his voice firm but shaky. "Colonel, with respect, you're not in charge of this scene." Angela took one step forward, close enough that her medals brushed against his chest. "I outrank your entire department, officer. And you're about 3 seconds from losing your badge if you don't explain why your body cam was off during the arrest." The mention of the body cam made both officers freeze. Daniels swallowed hard, tapping at his vest as if pretending to check. "There must have been a glitch." "A glitch," Angela said coldly, "that conveniently turns on after evidence appears? I've seen better lies from recruits under interrogation." The crowd murmured again, louder now. One man called out, "Tell her, Colonel. They've been doing this for years." Angela ignored the noise. Her focus stayed on the two officers. Then, without breaking eye contact, she raised her phone and said calmly, "Dispatch, this is Colonel Angela Brooks. I need Internal Affairs and a supervisor at Maple Drive, Code 3. 2 officers involved in evidence tampering and unlawful detainment of a minor." Both men froze completely. Danielle's face drained of color. Reynolds' hand started to tremble. Ma'am, Reynolds stammered, please, let's not blow this out of proportion. Maybe we can talk this out. No, Angela said, her tone razor sharp. You didn't want to talk when you shoved my son against the car. Marcus stood behind her, still shaken, still quiet. His eyes darted between the cops and his mother, absorbing every second. Mom, he whispered, just let's go home. She turned to him gently, the steel in her tone softening for the first time. We will, son. But not until justice starts tonight. Moments later, another patrol car pulled up, this one marked Internal Affairs. Two plainclothes officers stepped out, one holding a tablet, the other with a stern expression. Colonel Brooks, the lead investigator, said, we got your call. What's the situation? Angela handed him the evidence bag. 2 of your officers detained my son without probable cause. Evidence appears planted. Body cams were off until after the arrest began. The investigator's face hardened. He turned toward Daniels and Reynolds. Officers, remove your weapons and place them on the hood of your vehicle. Wait, what? Daniels protested. Now, the investigator repeated firmly. The crowd erupted, phones recording, voices shouting, justice, and finally. Marcus watched, stunned, as the same officers who'd humiliated him now stood speechless while Internal Affairs began checking their body cams. Body cam shows no recording for the first 3 minutes, the investigator noted. That's a direct violation of department code. Angela folded her arms, silent but fierce. I suggest you review the footage from the neighbors' phones too, she said. You'll see the exact moment the bag appeared. Reynolds looked like he might collapse. Colonel, please, he whispered. We didn't mean. Angela's tone was cutting, but calm. You meant to teach him a lesson. The problem is, you just got schooled by the wrong student's mother. The investigator nodded toward the colonel. We'll take it from here, ma'am. You and your son are free to go. Angela gave a small nod. But before turning to leave, she faced the 2 disgraced officers one last time. You see this uniform, she said quietly. I earned every pin, every stripe, by defending this country, including your right to serve. But tonight, you reminded everyone that not all wars are fought overseas. Some are fought right here, on the streets we call home. The words hung in the air like thunder after lightning. As she and Marcus walked back to the SUV, the crowd parted, respectful, emotional, some even clapping softly. Marcus looked up at her. Mom, they're gonna lose their jobs, aren't they? Maybe, she said, opening the car door. But that's not what matters. Then what does? He asked quietly. Angela looked at him with pride. That you didn't let them break you. That's how real change begins. They got into the SUV, the reflection of police lights fading off the windshield. Inside, silence filled the space, heavy, but powerful. Angela took a deep breath, started the car, and whispered. They picked the wrong family, Marcus. And as the SUV rolled away, the crowd's recording lights shimmered like fireflies, truth finally catching up to power. By the next morning, the quiet suburban street that once echoed with police sirens was now crawling with reporters. News vans, microphones, and flashing cameras lined the block. A headline flashed across every local channel. Colonel confronts police after son framed with drugs, entire arrest caught on camera. Clips from neighbors' videos played on loop, Marcus's terrified face, the planted evidence, and then, the unforgettable moment his mother, Colonel Angela Brooks, stepped into frame in full uniform, her voice firm and commanding. The internet exploded. Millions of views. Thousands of comments. Powerful. That mother is a hero. Imagine the courage it took to stand like that. But not everyone was celebrating. Inside the police department, panic spread like wildfire. At 8 a.m., a mandatory meeting was called. Internal Affairs played the footage in front of the chief of police, his jaw tightening with every passing second. So, the chief said finally, voice low, "You're telling me 2 of my men falsified evidence, and did it to the son of a U.S. Army colonel?" Silence. Daniels and Reynolds sat stiffly, eyes downcast. "Chief, Daniels began. "Save it," the chief snapped. "You've put the entire department under national fire. You're suspended effective immediately, pending criminal investigation." Both officers looked crushed, but the chief wasn't done. "And pray she doesn't press federal charges. You embarrassed this badge." He stood, pacing. "A uniform means something. Hers stood for honor. Yours, for shame." Meanwhile, across town, Angela sat at her kitchen table, uniform jacket off now, sleeves rolled up. The morning light poured through the window as she scrolled through her phone, reading messages from veterans, activists, and mothers across the country. Every message carried the same tone, gratitude and outrage. "You stood up for all our sons. Thank you for exposing the truth. You made us proud, Colonel." Marcus sat across from her, still processing everything. His phone buzzed nonstop, news notifications, texts from classmates, even strangers offering support. But underneath it all, he was quiet. Angela looked up. "You okay?" He hesitated. "Yeah. I just keep thinking about what would have happened if you hadn't shown up." Angela's eyes softened. "Then that's why we fight. Not just for you, but for every kid who doesn't have someone to walk in for them." Marcus looked down, then back up with determination. "I want to do something, Mom. Speak out. Tell people what really happens out there." Angela smiled faintly. "Then we'll start today." Hours later, they stood outside the police headquarters. A crowd had gathered, reporters, activists, veterans, and local families. Marcus stood beside his mom at the microphones. The air was electric. Cameras rolled. He took a deep breath. "My name is Marcus Brooks," he began, voice shaking slightly, "and a few nights ago, I learned what fear really feels like. 2 officers tried to ruin my life, not because of what I did, but because of who I am." The crowd murmured. Marcus continued, stronger now. "But that night also showed me what courage looks like. My mom didn't just save me, she reminded everyone what justice is supposed to mean." He looked up at her. Angela gave a small, proud nod. "We don't hate cops," Marcus went on. "We just want the ones who break the law to face the same law as everyone else." Applause broke out. Reporters shouted questions, but Angela stepped forward, her calm presence commanding instant silence. "I wore this uniform to defend the Constitution," she said. "That means defending every citizen, including my son. Last night wasn't about power. It was about accountability." She turned slightly toward the cameras. "To every parent watching, teach your children to stand tall, even when the world tries to break them. Because courage doesn't always wear camouflage, sometimes it wears fear, and still walks forward." The applause grew louder, genuine, emotional. Some people cried. Others saluted. As the press conference ended, Marcus stepped down and hugged his mother tightly. "You were incredible," he whispered. "No," she said softly. "We were." Later that evening, a national news anchor ended her segment with these words. Colonel Angela Brooks reminded America that real heroes don't just fight wars abroad, they fight injustice at home. And sometimes, the strongest weapon is a mother's voice. At home, Marcus sat in his room, scrolling through the flood of messages. One caught his eye, from a law student in Chicago. "You inspired me to join the fight for reform. You're not alone." He smiled, a quiet, knowing smile. Angela knocked on the door. "You coming to dinner?" "Yeah," Marcus said, standing. "Just finishing something." He closed the laptop. On the screen was a draft title for his first blog post. "How My Mom Taught Me to Stand Up, Even in Handcuffs." As he walked out, the light from his room flickered off, leaving only the soft echo of a proud mother's voice downstairs, and the feeling that something had changed. 3 months had passed since that night. Autumn leaves now covered the same street where blue and red lights once flashed. The world had moved on, But for Marcus Brooks and his mother, Colonel Angela Brooks, everything had changed. The police department had issued an official statement apologizing for the misconduct, announcing the termination of officers Daniels and Reynolds, and pledging new training focused on community accountability. But for the Brooks family, it wasn't about an apology. It was about truth finally being seen. At the local community center, a small crowd gathered under a banner that read, "Youth Voices for Justice, Special Guest, Marcus Brooks." Marcus stood on stage in a crisp shirt, no notes in his hands, just quiet confidence. Angela watched from the front row, in civilian clothes this time, her expression soft with pride. He began slowly. "When I first saw those flashing lights, I thought my life was over. But that night didn't destroy me, it defined me." He looked around the room, at kids his age, parents, teachers, even a few off-duty cops who came to listen. "I used to think justice was something grown-ups handled. Lawyers, soldiers, officers. But now I know, it starts with people like us. The ones who refuse to stay silent." A quiet nod rippled through the audience. Angela felt a warmth rise in her chest, the same feeling she used to get watching her troops succeed under pressure. Marcus continued, "My mom didn't save me just because she wore a uniform. She saved me because she never forgot what it means to serve, not power, but people." The room erupted in applause. Angela blinked back tears. For the first time in years, she wasn't the one giving orders, she was watching her son lead. After the event, reporters crowded him again, but this time, he didn't flinch. He answered calmly, clearly, with purpose. One journalist asked, "Marcus, what do you want people to take from your story?" Marcus thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. "That change doesn't start in a courtroom or a headline, it starts when someone finally says, 'That's not right,' and refuses to back down." That night, back home, Angela found Marcus sitting on the porch, staring at the quiet street. The same place where it all began. She sat beside him, the air cool and calm. "You spoke well today," she said softly. "Thanks, Mom," he replied. "You think Dad would have been proud?" She smiled gently. "He would have been over the moon." A comfortable silence followed, broken only by the soft hum of crickets and distant traffic. Angela took a deep breath. "You know, when I wore that uniform for the first time, I thought the fight was out there, across the ocean. But I've learned something lately." Marcus turned to her. "What's that?" "The real fight is for what happens right here, in our own streets, in our own hearts. Every time someone stands up for what's right, the country gets stronger." Marcus nodded quietly, absorbing every word. "Then I guess it's my turn to serve," he said. "Not with a weapon, with words." Angela smiled proudly, eyes glistening. "That's how revolutions start." They sat together, the moonlight glowing softly over the neighborhood that once watched in fear, now in respect. A gentle wind rustled the trees as if the world itself had exhaled, finally at peace. The camera would pull back here, mother and son sitting side by side, two silhouettes against the night sky. Across the screen, the final words fade in. "True strength isn't in power, it's in the courage to stand up when silence feels safer." Fade out.